What is happening out there, Roto Scouts football fans? Welcome to the show, gang. Happy Monday. Hope your week's off to a good start. Hope everybody out there had good football weekends. Got burnt a little bit by Mr. Breece Hall, just not having a day. Got a little bit overweight to Breece for the main slate. Had a bunch of really good lineups that just had that 2 dragging him down. Wouldn't have been a winner, but would have been a better week if Breece had given me 10 fantasy points maybe. Couldn't quite get there, but it was a good week. It was a fun week, definitely. Had a lot of fun putting everything together over the weekend. Appreciate everybody who signed up for memberships over the weekend. We definitely got a nice start to that going on, so much appreciated. We've got projections up on the site for this 2-game main slate, as well as the separate big showdown game, which is the later of the 2 games, the Seattle at Detroit game. So all of that's up. What we're going to do on this one, we're going to take a quick tour through the players. I'm going to do is my best to go through this kind of quickly. We'll jump into some lineup building for the showdown slate. So we'll talk about both games for the main, and then we're going directly into showdown, and then we're going to look at some ace mine sims for the showdown slate, not for the main slate. I just didn't have enough time to get the main slate running, just switching back and forth. So we're going to do that for the showdown slate, but we're going to kick off right now, getting into it kind of quickly, because there's a lot to talk through, and I want to get us out of here by 7 o'clock because the first slate starts at 7:30, and I got to get some lineups in, and I know you guys do too. So we're going to go through this at a solid, hopefully solid pace. Every now and again, somebody in the chat, if you get a chance, just remind me to click build and keep on building lineups. I do like to use the optimizer even for a 2-game slate to build lineups and then drop those into my sim pool. So for the main slate, I'm doing that in the background here. I just dropped another bunch in. I've already got 1,200 built, so I mean it's not tragic if I don't do more, but I'd like to have more for that large slate. Greg Biancona, NFL DFS, is taking a bite out of my MLB winnings. Yeah, that's the nature of NFL a lot of seasons. You know, it'll chisel away at the bankroll, and then you get a nice big week, and then it'll chisel away at the bankroll, and then you get a nice big week. But we'll find some consistency in here, Greg. I promise you. I'm sure we'll get there. And we've got, NHL starting up, next week, I think, for hockey. I'm going to try and land on some hockey projections. I'll see what I can do. The best thing somebody out there can do to help is to volunteer to monitor the line changes. I'm going to jump into our NHL Discord and see if we get a chance for that. But then NBA starting up right behind that. Media day for NBA today. My Knicks trying to duck and dodge questions about the still not completed Karl Anthony Towns trade that I'm a big fan of. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about that. We'll talk about it a lot during the basketball season, but I thought it was a great move. I'll miss Dante DiVincenzo. I think he's a good, not great player, a very good 3-and-D wing. We've already got replacements for him on this roster, let alone across the NBA. There are guys who do what Dante DiVincenzo does. Karl Anthony Towns is a very, very good positional fit for this Knicks team, so just hope the deal doesn't fall through after this. But anyway, a couple of games up. Week 1 to start things. Miami favored by 2.5 in a 37-point game at home against the kind of low-end Tennessee Titans. Tennessee feels like they should be a better team. Just like, look at the name brands up and down that lineup. Outside of Will Levis, the quarterback, obviously, who's been okay. Not terrible, not good. But, I mean, Tony Pollard, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, Tajay Spears, Tyler Boyd, Treylon Burks as another depth receiver. It should be a better team. They should be a higher scoring offense and click a little bit more on offense with some of those players. Been pretty up and down to start the season. DeAndre Hopkins obviously had a couple of weak games to start things out, but then came to life a little bit in week 3, where Calvin Ridley had a better start and then kind of a week 3. His first 2 games weren't overly impressive. Ridley, 3 catches for 50 on 7 targets in week 1, 4 catches for 77 and a touchdown in week 2. Also rushed the ball in for a touchdown, 1 carry for 10 yards and a touchdown week 2. So it was a decent week 2, but then he dropped to one catch on 3 targets, 30 routes run, 9 yards gained in week 3. That was amidst Hopkins catching 6 of 7 targets, 73 yards and a touchdown for him in week 3. That was coming off of just 2 catches over the first 2 weeks. He played the same number of snaps in week 3 that he played in week 2, but he ran 3 more routes and obviously was targeted quite a bit more. I do like him to continue to, get back into form here a little bit, and they should be a decent 1-1A kind of a combination, him and Ridley. There's still skill in both players. It's just a question of, Levis getting them the ball effectively. In week 3, he completed 26 of 34 against Green Bay, threw 2 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions, 260 yards. Has at least 1 interception in every game, 2 in the first one, 2 in week 3, and then 1 in the middle. 1 touchdown in each of the first 2 games. Weaker performances in both of those. He was sub 200 yards in both of those. 32 and 28 pass attempts. Completed 4 yards per pass attempt, 6.9 yards per pass attempt. So just kind of a mid-level option, but on the four team slate, you got to do what you got to do. So I think we definitely embrace some stacks around Levis. We definitely want to stack him with Ridley and with Hopkins. I think you can work with the running backs as far as the pass game goes. Both of them limited targeting in the pass game, or limited output in the pass game. Pollard's 3 catches, 12 yards in week 1, a good 5 catches for 40 yards in week 2, 3 catches for 15 yards in week 3. So the output hasn't been fantastic. 11 yards in weeks 2 and 3, but then 54 yards from Tajay Spears in a pretty solid receiving game in week 3. But both running backs were targeted. Pollard 4 times, 6 times, and 4 times. And then Spears 4 times, 2 times, and 4 times. So both of these guys are getting reasonable target share. It amounts to a 4.7 target average. I could have just done it with the averages, of course. 3.3 average over here. As far as where they're catching the ball, it's right around the line of scrimmage and then make something happen. But both of those guys are dynamic, explosive enough runners to make things happen, and they've been doing it a little bit. What you'd really like to see is a little bit of red zone targeting. So far, none of Spears' targets have come in the red zone, and Pollard's got 2 targets in the red zone. So you'd like to see that, even if it's from the 15. If once you're inside the 20, get one of those dynamic plays and have them break it for a touchdown. But both of those guys do see enough pass game volume that they're easy to incorporate into stacks there. As far as depth receiving, Tyler Boyd, 2 or 3 catches a week. Boyd's at 4.7 targets, hauling in 2.7 catches a game, 8.2 yard ADOT. 15.25% of the air yards. Ridley's pulling in way more of the air yards. He's nearly 50% of the air yards so far. He's also the biggest target so far over the first 3 weeks. And he's drawing a 23.3 yard ADOT. So that's a significant downfield target. Pair of touchdowns on the board for him. As far as Levis's targeting goes, he is throwing for a 7.9 intended air yards per attempt, throwing the ball 31.3 times a game, completing nearly 70% of his passes. This isn't bad in terms of the volume and the completion percentage, and they do take some shots. So it's a very capable offense. Titans defense against Miami. Miami's going with Tyler Huntley this week as the backup quarterback. Good meme going around this week was a fake message from the Dolphins basically saying, if you've got a Dolphins jersey and have ever thrown a football, please show up here for tryouts. That's basically what they're down to. It's going to be a little bit ugly. So I think the Tennessee defense easily in play with the idea of some turnovers. Definitely still some threats with Devon Achane. All signs point to no Raheem Mostert. I haven't seen the official confirmation, but he was questionable / not going to play through most of the week. So it should be a decent wide open opportunity again for Devon Achane to star and put up a pretty big game. He's the highest projected Dolphins player. The receiving core takes a little bit of a hit. I didn't give Jalen Waddle as big a haircut as it seems like some other people did, but definitely a haircut there. Tyreek Hill, same thing, little bit of a haircut. But those two guys do have enough ability if Huntley's able to get the ball to them 2 or 3 times even, let alone 5 or 6 times. They do have big playability. So I didn't want to give them that big a trim on a 4-game slate, but definitely going to be diminished by that quarterbacking situation. And it feeds the idea of some upside for the Tennessee defense. You're going to get some carries out of the backup running backs with Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jalen Wright, both probably getting a few touches apiece. So there's definitely fuel for this to go off. It's definitely limiting over here, but you're going to want at least some of the skill players from the Miami side, which means on a 2-game slate, 4 teams available, you're probably going to want some Tyler Huntley in there. Huntley peaked in 2021 with Baltimore. He started 7 games that year. He threw 188 passes, completed nearly 65% of them, 64.9. Threw for 1,081 yards, 3 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Last year, got into 5 games, threw 37 passes. Pretty good ratio of touchdowns to pass attempts, 37 passes, 3 touchdowns. Did that come? I forget that output. Did that come in one big game and then was just like running out the clock in a couple others? Joker, come here. Come here, buddy. I don't want him in the other room. You chill in here, pal. That was also with Baltimore. So yeah, that must have been one game that he got into. Oh wait, I gotta look him up on Miami because that's the team he's on now. He's gonna be backed up by Tim Boyle, it looks like, by the way. And 23 game log. Here we go. So yeah, it was one significant game in Week 18. He threw 28 passes that week, 146 yards and a touchdown. Also ran the ball 8 times for 40 yards. He does have that skill set. The other touchdown passes came in just spot appearances. 7 pass attempts in Week 9. 1 pass attempt for a 19-yard touchdown in Week 17. So just little spots where he was spelling Lamar. Probably a more talented quarterback than Skylar Thompson. Let's at least go that way. And capable of running the ball and making some things happen. Tennessee's defense so far this year. I added some stuff over here, by the way. Tennessee's defense has been gettable. 4.5 yards per pass attempt ranks 18th. Per rush attempt ranks 18th, which augurs well for Devon Achane. 5.4 yards per pass attempt ranks 4th, which doesn't necessarily play up the Tyler Huntley throwing the ball to these guys, except for the fact that you can consider he's probably just going to be throwing some dump out passes, a little underneath stuff that then those guys need to make things happen. Might be limiting overall, but they might be able to march down the field against that. 16.5% pressure rate. They've come up away with 7 sacks and 4 interceptions so far. So reasonable scoring defense. What is that? Is not right. Unless I'm mistaken, Miami does not have 26 interceptions this season. Oh, you know what? That's probably pulling the wrong... Yep. Bear with me. I just added these in a hurry before the show, and I forgot to fix this. This should be 18 there, I think. Nope. Hang out, guys. 1 second. This is not helping us speed through the show. Where is it? Interceptions is 15. I just want the basic, easy totals. Why it shouldn't be so difficult. The hell is sacks? Am I missing it? Is it not in here? Is that coming from a different... Oh, whatever. We'll go back to the old board. See what happens when you try to improve things for no good reason. All right, there you go. 7 sacks, no picks, 16.5% pressure rate. 26.4% blitz rate for Tennessee. And then on the other side, Miami's defense has come away with 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, a 20% pressure rate. So neither of these defenses is overwhelming. Looks like the pressure rate was right, but these are looking up the wrong thing. So I'll just hide those again. Neither of these defenses is like overwhelmingly pressuring the quarterbacks, but you've got 2 mediocre quarterbacks who, against any kind of pressure, may have a little bit of an issue. Obviously, the skill players from Miami work well in bring back situations against any kind of Tennessee stack. Obviously, you're getting players from all sides in basically every lineup in a 2-game slate. But definitely there are premium options there. And then downboard, I mentioned Jalen Wright and Jeff Wilson, both probably going to get some opportunities. 23% of the snaps for Wright last week, 17% of the snaps for Wilson. Wright carried the ball 2 times, saw no targets on 10 routes run. Jeff Wilson carried the ball 3 times, saw no targets on 9 routes run. Do with that what you will. It's probably the Devon Achane show on the ground. But the idea that they were at least out there running a few routes gives you a little bit of faith. The idea that they both did get the ball in their hands a little bit. Wright gained 17 yards and Wilson gained 14 yards. So very limited performances from pretty limited talents. As far as the receiving core goes, 39.2% of the air yard share going in the direction of Tyreek Hill on an 11.2 yard ADOT. Another 17% going in Jalen Waddle's direction, a little bit more underneath on an 8 yard ADOT. Jonnu Smith seeing just 8.7% of the air yards, 4.8 yard ADOT, typically working in close, but a 4-yard target average, or 4 target average for the season. He's getting involved a little bit. That does amount to 2 targets in week 1, 7 targets in week 2, and then 3 targets again in week 3. 1 catch, 6 catches, and 2 catches. The output comes and goes with the targeting. Jonnu Smith is a good tight end. He's run routes, but really 14 and 12 in weeks 1 and 3, 18 snaps, 21 snaps. Hasn't really been a super priority to get him involved. You do have snaps going in Durham Smythe's direction at the tight end position, and then Julian Hill also picking up a moderate amount of snaps. Those guys, more limited route running, but not all that dissimilar when you consider that Jonnu's not running a ton of routes. He ran 27 in week 2. That was a nice uptick. The other guys basically running, Smythe and Hill, basically running 9-10 routes a week, drawing 1-2 targets. But again, that has been kind of similar to what Jonnu's done. Both of those guys have been targeted in the red zone at least once over the last 2 weeks. Julian Hill got 2 red zone targets last week. Jonnu, just 1 red zone target all season across 3 weeks. That came in week 2 in the bigger opportunity. So I think while Jonnu does need to project out a little bit higher as the nominal starter, mixing and matching your way to these 2 guys, probably not a terrible idea on showdown slates. And there would be justification to put Julian Hill, and I'll probably do it when I update. I'm going to give him a little bit of a nudge. I'm actually going to do it right now on the back end so that I don't forget. I'm just going to put him slightly above 1 so that we're not crossing him off completely if we rule out sub 1 players in builds. Just on the idea that they did throw it in his direction in the red zone. There we go. That'll play. And when did Smythe come down too? All right. That plays. Let me click another lineup pool here. A lot going on. So that's probably more showdown focused, where you can get into messing around with some of the backup tight ends as far as the sub 1 thing and everything. Reminds me. On the full slate, you can mix and match your way to a few of those downstream tight ends, a few of those lower projected guys, just for differentiation's sake. And that's where you get into some Treylon Burks. He's drawn a very solid downfield 18.7 yard ADOT, 14.85% of the air yards on the Tennessee side. You could also look at Malik Washington, who's expected to make his return. He's questionable still, so keep an eye on that one on the Miami side. He's right here. Just a tiny projection. We haven't seen him yet. He was a 6th-round pick, 5'9", 191 pounds. So just for depth, I do think maybe a target or so goes in his direction. They're kind of lacking overall options. Braxton Berrios is on that list. He's drawn 2 targets in week 1 and then 2 targets across the next 2 games. But he's out there running routes 15, 24, and 9 routes run, so he's not completely uninvolved. D. Eskridge probably going to be pretty limited, pretty uninvolved if he dresses at all. He did see a target. He caught it for 30 yards in week 3. He played 7 snaps with the offense. But, it's between Malik Washington, D. Eskridge. I assume if Washington dresses, he's going to go. And Eskridge doesn't, other way around if he doesn't play. Downboard for Tennessee, you're looking at, further depth tight end options. Oops. Behind Chigakonkwo, who we didn't talk about in the outset, he's drawn more of the targeting. 2 targets, 3 targets, and 2 targets. But we did have Josh Wiley step up to 5 targets on 18 routes run, played 25 snaps to Okonkwo's 29 snaps in week 3, and had also played 25 to 29 snaps in week 2. Ran 12 routes, but only drew 2 targets on those. So Wiley's biting a little bit of the upside for Okonkwo. It's kind of a similar situation with a little bit more emphasis on the Wiley side. He would definitely be an interesting tight end too in showdown slates if you're playing the early showdown slate. And you can mix him in given the amount of volume that he's seen. He saw a red zone target in week 3. Chig has seen 1 red zone target and it came in week 1. So you're just kind of splitting the difference between those guys. And then Nick Vannett also gets involved a little bit. He ran 5 routes in week 3. He caught 2 passes for 9 yards, and he actually scored the touchdown. So a little bit, again, of just oddballs, just around 1 point projection. That's another one I'm going to goose slightly so I get him into the mix here. Not that much. All right. I'll update these as soon as we're done on the with the show. So, as a dart throw in Showdown, for sure. As a dart throw to differentiate and wildly differentiate some main slate lineups, you can go, but it's entirely touchdown dependent. Nick Westbrook-Zucchini has been out there running sprints. He ran 3 routes in each of the first 2 weeks, went up to 11 routes last week, and has not been targeted yet this season. Wouldn't really expect much outside of just a Showdown slate dart throw kind of an opportunity. Moving on to game 2. This is the one we'll talk about again and build lineups for as far as the Showdown goes. Let me see what you guys are talking about. Quiet chat today. Bunch of people here hanging out, watching, but quiet chat. Not a lot going on. Check out the site for projection needs. Check out our guys over at acemine.io. Promo code RotoScouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month over there. We are up and running with the paywall at RotoScouts. Very, very inexpensive as far as the industry goes. We're under $1 a day. The only choice in our plans is what your payment term is. Weekly, monthly, quarterly. Broke it down so that it's $1 a day or less for every single one of the plans, and every single one of the plans gives you Guys still with me? Can you hear me? Somebody give me a heads up that you can hear me. Fucking neighbor just turned off my power. Like the guys in the hallway where our fuse boxes are, flipping switches. No idea which one's his, but flip mine. So turned off the power in the middle of the show. Had to wait for the internet to reboot and the router to come back on and all of that. All right, thanks, Bird Nerd. Bird Nerd says he's got me. So let's jump back in. Don't really know when the last time I had saved these files was, so we might be... hopefully this is all the correct dashboard. Could have done without that. Really could. As I was saying, the paywall's up at Roto Scouts now, so, go check that out. Middle of my little pitch here. So what I was saying, guys, at Roto Scouts, everything's under $1 a day, and every single plan is going to give you access to every single sport and every single piece of content. It's not going to be sport by sport, so I'm not going to ask you for more once NBA starts. If you got the plan for football, you've got the plan for NBA, right? So pretty inexpensive, pretty easy to come by. You click over to Roto Scouts, you can click on any of the articles, the thing will pop up. There's also a join link up top. People seem to have a easy time finding it yesterday. Ran into one issue, the PayPal portal wasn't set up correctly, so I got to get that taken care of. That'll happen this week. Otherwise, credit cards, CashApp, all of that's there. And if you need anything at all, ping me in Discord, send me an email, hit me up on Twitter, whatever you need, including if you need an alternate payment method. There's a portal that I can set up to have, I just take Venmo from you on the side and set your account up, right? So it's very, very easy. Anyway, the more interesting of these two games, and now we got to talk even faster because we lost a few minutes there. Seattle at Detroit, 46.5-point total. Two pretty frisky teams with very good skill players up and down, competent quarterbacks up and down. Hide these again. So as far as yards per attempt, the Seattle defense so far, 3.9 yards per pass attempt allowed is first in football. You got to expect that that's going to come down somewhat, but they have been pressuring the quarterback significantly, a 36.7% pressure rate. Against the run, they've just been a little bit weak, 4.4 yards per rush attempt, ranks in the middle of the league. Not bad, not great. So a little bit of upside maybe coming for the Detroit rush game, which is a very, very competent two-headed rushing game. Probably my favorite two-headed rushing attack in the league between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. One of the only situations where I can say that for the most part, both of those guys do tend to succeed. They can both succeed on the same week in medium output. It's the games that elude us are those massive Mostert type games from last year where both those guys exploded. That's going to be the forever example of the upside from two running backs. Typically, it's not the best construction, but definitely on a slate like this, a little two-game slate, I think you can go to a Montgomery and Gibbs stack. There is enough upside in yardage and opportunity up and down the field, and there is enough opportunity for both of those guys to score touchdowns. Does it typically come and go? Would I be saying that on a main slate? No, I wouldn't be saying that on a main slate, but on a two-gamer, yes, you can go that way, and hopefully it's a more unique construction because hopefully people are blocking it off from being possible in their optimizer builds. A lot of times people will just hit that option and just say, hey, I don't want these two running backs from the same team just by default, or if they don't think to change their settings for a two-game slate from what they normally do, which I'm just now checking if I did. Okay, all of that stuff is still there. Good. Got to really keep building lineups in the background here. Hopefully my Ace Mine Sims, I think those should have saved. So we know most of the usual culprits on both sides of this, but both these quarterbacks throw the ball a decent amount of the time. We've got a 75% completion rate on nearly 35 attempts a game out of Geno, which is just ideal. He's thrown for 260-plus yards a game. He's thrown 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season. The output hasn't been overly fantastic. He's just a very accurate game-managing kind of a quarterback, but he's got fantastic weapons to work with in DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. Like all three of those guys, he's got Kenneth Walker, their lead running back, coming back in this one. Walker was out for the first 2 after going for 20 carries, 103 yards, and a touchdown, also catching 2 of 3 targets for another 6 yards in week 1. Solid backup running back who did a good job in spelling Kenny Walker the last 2 weeks. Zach Charbonnet, 14 carries, 38, and a touchdown with 5 catches for 31 yards in week 2, and then 18 carries, 91 yards, and 2 TDs, 3 catches for 16 yards, so over 100 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns in week 3. So Charbonnet's a prime talent, takes a little bit of a haircut with Walker coming back, but everybody's involved, and I do think you could probably get away with a 2 running back build on this side as well in the 2-game slate. Not ideal. I'd prefer it from this side, and you can see the projection difference from Charbonnet as opposed to the dual projection at running back on that side. They've got a deeper receiving core for one thing. Part of the just general, there's only so many plays to go around, so part of it has to get fed into that receiving core. Metcalf's still the lead option among those guys. 4 catches, 104 yards, and a TD in week 3. 10 catches, 129, and a touchdown on 14 targets in his biggest game in week 2. Tyler Lockett has seen regular targeting, 7, dipped to 2, but caught both of them in week 2, and then went back up to 8, caught 5 of them in week 3. JSN had the big week 2, 12 catches on 16 targets for 117 yards. That was in the game that Lockett was a little bit more limited. Oddly, Lockett played 53 snaps versus the 30 snaps he played in the bookend weeks. Where JSN's just out there for, basically the entire game, running a bunch of routes. Operates a little bit more in close than the other guys do, but lots of ability and obviously, 100-yard ability, and works very well in stacks with Geno, because that's what Geno's looking to do is, not short, but, operate on a high completion rate, efficient passing game down the field. So JSN works out very well. He actually is outpacing Lockett with a 9.1 to an 8.6 yard ADOT. And DK's is buried under a set of initials. Thought I'd caught all of those. DK drew on 42.6% of the air yards. And where does that one come from? I will one day get around to building these lookup tables. 12.8 yard ADOT on 8 targets a game for DK so far. So again, the lead option, the downfield option, where these guys are both working a little bit more underneath, and solid, 1-1A at the secondary position. So 2-2A, I guess. Noah Fant, a reasonable tight end option, projects out okay, seeing regular targeting, caught 6 balls for 60 yards on 6 targets in week 3. Mark of the beast there. Hasn't scored yet, kind of touchdown dependent, but definitely when he gets there, has big playability. He was part of a lineup that won me a 6-figure payout on a showdown slate last year. So definitely a player that I like getting to, and that feeds the upside for some of the downstream tight ends. In terms of the skill players at the receiver positions on the Detroit side, you've obviously got a biggie with the highest projection overall on the 2 games on the Detroit side of things in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra caught 7 balls for 75 yards and a touchdown in week 3, 11 catches for 119, but failed to score on a massive 18 targets in week 2 against Tampa Bay. That was coming off of a quiet week 1 where he caught 3 passes for 13 yards. No issues with going to him. Major target, 10.7 a game, 8.2 yard ADOT, just operates basically all over the field, a prime target for Jared Goff. You've got Samuel Laporta off to a slow start, diminishes projection a little bit this week. Caught 2 passes each of the last 2 weeks. Hasn't been over 50 yards on the season. Caught 4 or 5 in week 1. Just targeted 3 times, 2 times in weeks 2 and 3 also. So, limited targeting, limited action for Laporta so far, but a big game-breaking any given slate upside for a tight end. Jameson also dipped a little in week 3. He only caught 1 pass for 9 yards on 3 targets. He was targeted 11 times in week 2, caught 5 of them for 79 yards, and had the big week 1 with 5 catches, 121, and a touchdown. He's the clear second option at the wide receiver spot to Amon-Ra, but definitely a very talented receiver who has kind of come into his own finally. A 14.1 yard ADOT, 44.8% of the air yards, getting more of the air yards than Amon-Ra is. So a very solid big play downfield receiver for Goff to work with. Tim Patrick, extremely limited option, 20 and 13 routes run, 4 and 1 targets, caught 2 and 1 passes, and has not been over 15 yards so far. That was across 2 games. Further down the board, Khalif Raymond, another just limited option. 3 catches in week 2 for 27 yards on 4 targets, has not been targeted despite running a couple few routes in week 3 and 20 routes in week 1. Craig Reynolds, just depth, not expecting any touches downstream here, just depth guys. We're taking most of those guys out. On the Seattle side, among the depth options, if you're looking at them for the showdown slate, Jake Bobo has run 6 routes every single game. He was targeted twice in week 2, but has not been targeted in the other weeks. Pharaoh Brown played 26 snaps last week. He ran 7 routes. He drew 2 targets. He caught 1 of them for 9 yards. Any of these guys is going to be a touchdown-dependent showdown slate only kind of an option. Laviska Shenault has a catch in each of the first 3 weeks. He's played under 10 snaps each week. He's drawn 1 target each week. You're talking about incredibly low volume dice rolls among any of these guys down here tonight. So it's pretty limited as far as your super cheap options on both sides of the showdown slate. We're going to jump into lineup building in a minute. And as far as the 2-game slate goes, you're really only going to want to be talking about the main guys, plus maybe a guy like Bobo, Pharaoh Brown even would be a stretch. Your multi-tight end situations, I think, are out of the other game. Brock Wright on the Detroit side, the Detroit side. He's drawn a little bit. Where is he? Had 4 catches last week on 5 targets. So, I mean, if you want to include him in the mix, that would probably be your secondary tight end option, who's the best player out of the lower end plays from down here. It's probably Tim Patrick, then Brock Wright, both coming from the Detroit side rather than these options. Defensively, despite the high total, I do think we could consider these defenses. The Detroit defense has been quite good at stuffing the run so far, 3.6 yards per rush attempt. And the Seattle defense has been good at stopping the pass so far. So it's kind of getting into what these teams like to do. Overall, Detroit carrying a 2.94 interception rate that ranks 9th, and a 7.27% sack rate that just ranks 20th. They've coughed up 17.7 points per game, which is the 8th best mark in football for limiting opposing scoring. 14.3 points per game for the Seattle defense allowed is 4th best. So both defenses have been functional this year. 9.82% sack rate for Seattle, and that the interception rate all the way up at 1.98, or excuse me, interception rate down at 1.98 is 16th. The sack rate up at 9.82% is 6th. So 2 functional, effective defenses that I do think you can get to for showdown slates, and I think are obviously in the mix in the 2-game slate. 638. I'm going to build some very, very quick lineups here, and I forgot to change the entry pools. We're just going to do this a little bit, and then I'm going to pull the Ace Mine Sims back up, and we'll look at those for the showdown slate. Just because we've lost some time, and I do, like I said, need to close this down at 7 so that I can get my lineups in. And not, have my hand shaking when I do it. All right, that FanDuel one is 73,412. The DraftKings one, I believe, is smaller tonight. I don't think it's a milli. I think it's a half mil. I don't know. I didn't look whether DraftKings went for the... did they go split showdown with the same prize pools? No, it's 100K in the early one, and then it's 200 in the later one. So I picked the right one. But that's it's interesting. That's only heavy quotes on only, but it goes from 117,000 entries normally to 4,758 entries. So it's probably going to concentrate some of your ownership, and it probably makes it a little bit easier to get to some of the differentiated plays at low ownership, and they'll have a bigger impact if they happen to get there. I'm going to go with Kenny Walker in the captain spot. Just for the hell of it. Actually, no. I'm going to go with the Detroit game in the Detroit running game in the captain spot. Yeah. Detroit's allowing 3.6 yards per rush attempt. That's second. Let's go with the Detroit rushing game. Actually, let's go double dip on the Detroit rushing game. And then we'll go Geno. JSN, my guy. Now you can spend all the money in the world, and you're wildly different than anything anybody's going to do. Let's just go to the top of the board and throw Amon-Ra into there and see what that does to our dupe number. So even with Amon-Ra, for one thing, you're leaving 10 grand on the table with that lineup, but that speaks to how cheap and silly the pricing is. That's not grabbing the right price. I forgot I changed that lookup. I was like, wait a minute, that can't be correct on the pricing. That's what happens when you do things in a hurry. Oh, come on. All right, listen. This isn't funny. Let's skip this. We're gonna. I think we might have to skip the. Just to get this thing going right. Why can't I just make a quick, easy lookup? All right. What am I? That's what it is. Joker, it's not you, buddy. What? This is so easy to do when you're not like in the middle of a show trying to make it happen quickly, and it's so difficult to do when you've just got to actually make it happen. All right, that makes sense. That's why that lineup didn't look too juicy. All right, 57. All right, now we're back in business. So let me grab a kicker. We'll go Bates. We'll go with the kicker from the Lions side. Big leg on that guy. And then I'll double up my my passing opportunity here with Geno. That's a sub 10 dupes. 1,000 on the table. Not completely terrible. I like the idea of the dual-headed running back out of Detroit. I really do. You need to get touchdowns going that way. So it definitely wouldn't play well with like an Amon-Ra play like I threw into that first version of it. If you want Amon-Ra, obviously, this makes a lot of sense as a starting point in builds. And then you're left with just 4,900 if you do that, though. So it's a little bit thin. You're probably playing a little bit of defense in there. Maybe we're going Detroit defense. Maybe we're going to like Charbonnet's a little too expensive to do that. Maybe you go double defense in this one. You're just hoping for like the big play upside of that to come through. Geno to be the functional game manager, complete a lot of his passes, but not necessarily the big play. Maybe they don't get in the end zone through the air. And now I get it back to 72, and I can have Sam Laporta if I want him. It'll be sub 10 dupes easily. Spends all your money. And if you take it a different direction, you're obviously getting cheaper. I mean, if you're going double defense there, one of the kickers probably makes a little bit of sense. Or you could go like to the guy I'm on. Just go like Noah Fant in that. You're playing him against, obviously, to stack with Geno there a little bit. 5 dupes. Not bad. All these are playable. JSN. I've got the money for JSN for that same reason. You can see the dupes go up a little bit more with him, but you're better, or you're better projected. You've got a safer floor with that. We'll get there, Chris. That was a nice night for sure. That was it was a Millie win, but it was like a 6-7 way tie. It was Jerry Jeudy, Geno Smith. I think it was Russ Wilson in that Denver game. I've got a screenshot of it because I'm a loser. Because this is how we need to be spending our time. On a day where I was saying like, oh my God, we got to be quick. It's a good example of how I like just the construction types that you can get to though. When you're just talking about the need one big play out of a second tight end to make things happen. It's the exact version of that. It was Jerry Jeudy captain. This is on FanDuel. So Jerry Jeudy MVP. I got my backup tight end. I got my tight ends from Seattle confused. It was Will Dissly, not Noah Fant in that lineup. Dissly had 3 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown in that game. So it was Dissly and Geno from the Seattle side, and then it was Jerry Jeudy with their kicker, Brandon McManus, and Russ Wilson from Denver that year. All 3 of those players not on Denver anymore, I think. Pretty sure. Is McManus still there? But that's just like, that's the lineup construction that we're chasing. That's the ideal scenario when that backup tight end has 3 catches, including a big play for a touchdown. Whoosh, shoots you right up there, and you're duped with, it was duped with like 6 or 7. Like I said, it didn't win $1 million, but it won the gigantic tournament and split a very nice prize pool. So that's exactly what you're looking for when we build these lineups. But it was Dissly, not Fant. I forgot about that. So screw Noah Fant. Rashee Rice, Dunzo, McCaffrey diagnosed with tendonitis in both feet. They're just finding more and more wrong with McCaff. Yeah, it's a shame. Burnt a lot of people in number 1 picks. Let's do one more here. Just because I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned in this role than he ought to be. What about Sammy Laporta captain? He won't be unowned, but it'll be a differentiated way to go about things. And obviously, super, super talented. Could definitely see a day where they feed him a little bit in the passing game to just kind of get him going. I can actually get Kenny in there at 84. That's not bad. A little Seattle heavy after that. And then 5,800. I want to go back to another Lion. Take Bates and leave some money on the table. 4 dupes. That'll work. So this is the exact thing I'm talking about, right? There's nothing at all weird, unreasonable, or crazy like downstream play in that lineup. And comes up to 4 dupes in that smaller version of this tournament. That is not bad. That lineup could totally work. The lead bell cow running back from Seattle, their highly targeted receiver, but not their most popular receiver. Quarterbacks from both teams, and then the premium tight end that you would have happily played in the captain role last year, and people are probably going to be more reluctant given his bad 3 games to start the season. That's dynamite. I like that a lot. Would play. 3 out of 5 stars. Would play. On the FanDuel slate, I'm going to do like one of these. We should probably just look at Ace Mind instead, but just for the hell of it. Give me Amon-Ra. Give me Goff. Actually, let's see. What would this week's version of that lineup I was just talking about be? Probably be Brock Wright in that backup tight end role. So it would be like Wright and Goff, Myers, Geno, and who would the Jerry Jeudy equivalent be in this game? Lockett? It's been whatever. This is obviously looking up the wrong pricing too. For FanDuel, we can just do this. Spill? What the hell does spill mean? Oh, I forgot to give it a... All right, so I'm looking for a receiver to work with. All right, so I mean, do I have... I don't have money left. Oh, screw this. I'm just going to pull up Ace Mine. This just ain't working out today. I'll get that fixed. It actually it doesn't need to be fixed. I just need to not try and hodgepodge it because of the 2-game slate versus the showdown slates. That's what screwed me up because I couldn't put both salary pools into there and have it all look up at the same thing, and I would have had to build a whole other salary table. So fun. All right. Here comes Ace Mind. AceMind.io, our sim partners. Guys are doing killer work over there. These ran a little bit earlier for the, this is for the showdown slate. Again, you've got the start for the 2-game slate coming up in 40 minutes. Going to have us out of here in about 10 minutes. But if you're playing that showdown slate, this is what we're looking at. I do like the, look at the mix in the captain role. Whereas a lot of the time we'll see just, tremendous option of one player with a little, interspersed other guys. This game is wide open in the captain spot. Geno, Gibbs, Montgomery, Walker, all across the top 4. Bunch of guys working in. Jamison Williams getting a share in there. Samuel Laporta is 2 shares out of those top 20 lineups. As we talk about a lot, you do get tons and tons of the quarterback, and you want tons and tons of the quarterback in your flex roles. 90% of Goff. This is only the top 20, but 90% Goff in flex, 65% Geno in flex, and then captain shares for both of those guys. And I'll pull up the top 150 in just a second. But a lot of Samuel Laporta coming up all the way up top. Fant, a little bit of Montgomery. Across our top 150, let's see what the ownership looks like. Michael Knack, that's not a appropriate comment for a fantasy football chat. Don't make me boot you, buddy. We're not here to talk politics, all right? Don't care about your opinion. Don't care about your side. Nobody cares about mine. Let's talk football. So Jared Goff and Geno Smith dropped to 75 and 73% of the flex shares across our top 150, but both of those guys obviously critical to lineup building for the top end lineups. Drops down to 59% Samuel Laporta, but you can see no captain is coming in more than 20%, which is David Montgomery in the captain role. So that's your top captain right now is Montgomery. Then we get 15% of Geno, 13% of Gibbs. A little less on Goff. Goff captain 9%. So this one holds true to a lot of what we've seen, where quarterback's a little bit more valuable in this game in the flex role. Skill players a little bit more valuable in this game in your captain spots. Goff 75% versus 9%. Montgomery 35% in the flex role, 20% in the captain role. You could goose both of those numbers given how much he's coming up in captain. I would expect that's a little bit under his public number, and that's how you always want to handle it. You always want to jump in and if we're seeing something come up more in a certain spot in our sims, in our top ROI, top winning percentage lineups, then we want to grab more of it than what the public gets. And we want to get to around these numbers. Kenny Walker, 25% in the flex, 13% in the captain. Not an insignificant number in the captain share. I would bet he's going to be in the upper single digits probably in the captain spot. So you can get to a little bit more Kenny Walker. I would juice the Kenny Walker, David Montgomery captain shares. Jameson Williams, 3% of the captains, probably about right. 29% in the flex makes some sense. Goff, we talked about. Lockett, nearly 50% of the flex roll, only 3% of the captain. Probably also, again, another one that makes sense. Laporta is an interesting one. 12% Laporta captain on DK. That's interesting. I don't think he's pulling that kind of weight. Yeah, he's projected in like the mid-single digits in the captain role on DK. Getting to him 12% against that in the captain role in these sims is very interesting. I would definitely consider some captain Samuel Laporta on DraftKings. That last lineup on DK that I built is kind of interesting. Some of your results. Average cash 1. Sim dupes. All these are clean on dupes. It's less problematic in this smaller slate. On the back end of these, you get like Fant, 29% in the flex roll. None in the captain. Makes sense. Bates, the kicker, 21% of the flex. Speaks to just getting him around the field with the kicker, I think. I don't see a lot of the defenses as I'm just glancing at this. There's one. There's the Lions. Lions D, 11%. That makes sense. Seattle's got to be in here somewhere. They're so much easier to spot when it's the full. I guess Seattle defense did not make the top 150. But we did get 11% of the Lions defense. Interesting. If you stretch to 500. And again, you always want to be looking at the larger pools as well. There are good lineups that go downfield, especially in Showdown. Really? We got no Seattle defense across the top 500? That's a surprise. They're more playable than that, in my opinion. They did come in with a pretty low projection, so I get it. But I would maybe give them a little bit more of a consideration. If you're building 150, if you're building 5, don't necessarily need it. But defenses, kickers definitely get there in Showdown format, and that's a lot of the time what we want to be looking for is just those differentiated pieces. Like I talk about, a backup, a second tight end with the idea of a guy who does get on the field, like a Brock. It does give you a little tiny bit of upside. Oh, this is asking me to. That guy screwed me up so much when he flipped that power off earlier. Let's look at FanDuel results, and then we're gonna get out of here. 4 minutes until we bail. Clunky show, guys. Apologies. We'll be better through the week. Come back. I'm going to jump on, I think, for at least maybe here and there for playoff baseball. There's nothing to do tomorrow, so maybe we'll jump on for a playoff baseball slate. We'll definitely have projections for playoff baseball. And then we'll knock out a few football shows for the main slate through the week. We'll knock out a Thursday football show. Rotoscouts.com has all your projection needs. AceMine.io has your sim needs. That's what we're looking at here. Let's jump to our top 150 on FanDuel here. Knock it out pretty quick. This is, again, for the showdown slate. Massive shares for both quarterbacks. No surprise there. We're not stratified across... it doesn't have it for MVP and flex roll yet for FanDuel shares. Matters a little bit less. But you can see some pretty well-constructed lineups up at the top. A lot of Geno and Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, again, landing in 40, not quite 50%, but a significant portion of lineups, and I'm sure we've got lineups with both of them in. As far as your captain goes, you do get a lot of quarterback captain on FanDuel, which makes a lot of sense. It's how it typically rolls. But in this one, we are getting a little bit more interjection of the skill players, primarily Amon-Ra and Kenny Walker, which makes, again, a lot of sense. But a little bit of Gibbs in there. I like that. Going down the board, you get, I'm sure, some Montgomery, Geno, Goff, JSN, and Jake Bates. That's an interesting lineup. FanDuel, your smaller prize pool, your more probability of being duped. It always reduces the overall cash numbers there, but some pretty high ROI lineups up at the top here. Dealing with a handful of dupes on each one of those, but it's non-tragic kind of numbers. Definitely playable. As far as our skill players, 29% Amon-Ra, 29% Kenny Walker, 32% Sam Laporta. Little bit of a reflection there maybe of these guys getting lower owned slightly than those guys, with those two bouncing up to bigger projections. And definitely, I would think, putting those two guys together in a lineup would be further differentiating for those two players. Bates, highly owned at the kicker spot, 27%, not bad. Myers right there at 19%, a lot of DK at 25%. Some Fant, the big drop there, though. 19% down to the next most exposed guy is 9%. Lions D at 5%, and then we're getting thinner and thinner. Obviously, a lot of these guys don't play that much, but I would like to have seen a little bit, maybe, of some of the downboard guys. Certainly Brock Wright. But he went in here again at the lower projection before I nudged it upwards, so that's probably part of it. But anyway, guys, hopefully that had some value for you. We'll be better in the future. I feel like that was like my worst show I've done in at least a year. But what happens? When the neighbor turns off the power, there's only so much I can do. But I appreciate you. Hit the like button if you liked it. If you don't like it, I understand. I don't know if I'd like this one. But I appreciate everybody out there who does. Follow the @RotoScouts Twitter handle. When you see something pop up there, give it a like, give it a retweet. It does actually help a little bit. And really appreciate everybody who signed up for memberships over the weekend. As I was talking about when we went black earlier in the show, keeping that under $1 a day regardless of which plan you select. The plans are only a decision as far as how much you want to dive in. It's weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So obviously I'm giving a bigger discount for people who have ongoing faith and want to buy quarterly out of the gate. That's 75 cents a day, 85 cents a day for the monthly, 99 cents a day for your weekly plan. So under $7 a week, under $1 a day. Hopefully doesn't have too big an impact on the bankroll. We're looking to serve the community here rather than make a ton of money, rather than drive things up and make your prices unreasonable. But we do need to monetize time and effort a little bit. So hopefully that works for everybody out there. Hit me up with any questions, concerns, or requests as far as payments or anything like that, guys. I'm highly, highly available. With that said, 7 o'clock on the nose. Good luck out there. Somebody go win something. We'll see you probably tomorrow. See ya.